In Pit Lane, proudly brought to you by Online Invent, websites, digital marketing, and custom software.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane. Well, as you can see, we're not in the studios of RMIT Student Television in the heart of Grand Prix City, Melbourne. We're in fact at Haunted Hills, Bryant Park, for the Victorian Hillclimb Championship. And of course it's Anzac Day this week, so we couldn't get into the studio, so we thought we might as well do the show from here. We're going to catch up with some of the competitors a little bit later on and have a look at a couple of the amazing cars that are a part of the Victorian Hillclimb Championship scene. But right now, as per usual, it's been a big weekend of motorsport, particularly internationally. Let's find out what's been happening around Australia and around the world. This is the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. Mark Winterbottom's Team 18 Camaro will bear a new number at this week's Perth Super Sprint as Winterbottom makes his 600th Supercar Championship race start. The car will be numbered 600 to mark the occasion as Winterbottom becomes only the third driver to reach the milestone after Craig Lowndes and Garth Tander. The man known to thousands of race fans as Frosty is feeling confident going into the Wanneroo round, saying he feels far more connected with the new Gen 3 Camaro than he ever felt in the previous generation Commodore.
I'm really in sync with the car, which is a good feeling. You know, I think I was quite disconnected from the previous car, where this one I really know what I want and what I'm after. So yeah, it's very clear to me where our weakness is, and we've got, you know, a great group of guys and girls that are working hard trying to fix that weakness. So it's not like the old car where you had to develop something. We've all got the same tools sort of underneath us, so it's about the numbers. So now we've got the smart people putting the numbers together, and you know, I think a quali car is close for me from the last round, but the race car is our focus, and yeah, everyone's working really hard.
And supercar competitors will benefit from an extra long practice session tomorrow when the series returns at Wanneroo in Western Australia. The Perth Super Sprint will see teams given an extended 90-minute practice session to give them more time to come to terms with the new Gen 3 cars. There are also minor changes to the rest of the weekend's program, with the 3 segments of qualifying to be 15 minutes long rather than the usual 10. Our thoughts are with Australian sprint car driver Marcus Dumsney, who's in a Queensland hospital following a big crash at the Queensland sprint car title. The second-generation racer was involved in an accident on lap 20 of the 35-lap feature at Toowoomba Speedway, which led to the race being declared early. Due to the delicate nature of his injuries, it took almost 2 hours until he could be safely extracted from the wreck of his car. Dumsney suffered a fracture of the T3 vertebrae, but the injury is stable, and as we record tonight's show, there's been no further updates on his condition or long-term prognosis. All of us here at In Pit Lane wish Marcus all the very best in his recovery. Alfred Evans stormed to an emotional victory at the Croatia Rally last weekend. An error from Thierry Neuville on Saturday morning propelled the Welshman to first overall, to lead home Ford Puma driver Ott Tänak to win by 27 seconds in his Toyota Yaris. The win, his first since 2021 and his first ever on tarmac, elevated Evans from 5th to equal first in the Drivers' Championship standings. He's now tied on points with Sébastien Ogier. Evans dedicated his victory to the memory of fellow driver Chris Breen, who died in a freak accident while testing for the event last week. Well, it was a big weekend of sports car racing around the world, with the return of the European Le Mans Championship at Spain the highlight. And for a while it was looking like an Aussie victory. What happened? Let's find out in this week's International Wrap. It was a tough race for Melbourne driver James Allen at the 4 Hours of Barcelona, the opening round of the European Le Mans Series. Driving with Alex Lynn and Kiffin Simpson in the Algarve Pro Racing Orica, Allen put in a great qualifying run to start the race on the front row of the grid. Allen was leading the race until contact from a lapped car put him into the gravel and out of contention. His team recovered to finish in 8th place. The race was won by the Pro-Am entry of Racing Team Turkey after Louis Delatraz passed the car of Neil Yarni in the final 15 minutes of the 4-hour race. Kyle Busch has won the Geico 500 at Talladega Superspeedway after he chose to stay on the track instead of pitting for fuel in a pair of overtime restarts. Busch's Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet had just enough fuel to make it back to the checkered flag, as other cars in the lead pack were collected in a multi-car accident on the final overtime lap. Busch and Bubba Wallace exchanged the lead during the final 2 laps of the race, but Wallace's Toyota was turned around after contact by Ryan Blaney, triggering a chain reaction that eliminated several other front-running cars. Chris Buescher survived the mayhem to finish 3rd, followed by Chase Briscoe and Brad Keselowski. The race featured 57 lead changes and was marked by several spins in pit lane. Rover Racing's BMW squad has kicked off the 2023 GT World Challenge Europe Series in style with a 1-2 finish at the opening round at Monza. Philip Eng, Marco Wittmann and Nick Ulloy started the race from pole and were never under any real threat. The 32-team WRT BMW had looked set for 2nd place before suffering a puncture with less than 30 minutes to run. This prompted the 2nd Rover Racing BMW of Neil Verhagen, Dan Harper and Max Hess to 2nd spot and give the young trio their first podium. The Iron Lynx Lamborghini team was 3rd. Australian driver Callan Williams took a 3rd place in the Gold Cup class in his debut, but it was a tough race for Tasmania's Alex Peroni after his Mercedes crashed out on the opening lap.
You're watching In Pit Lane from Bryant Park here in the Victorian Hillclimb Championships. When we come back, we're going to catch up with a couple of the competitors who make up a part of the hillclimb scene here in Victoria. So don't go away, we'll be right back. Bryant Park Hillclimb at Haunted Hills, just outside of Yallourn, is widely considered the best permanent hillclimb track in Australia. Built in 2008 to replace the old Morwell track, the 1.4 kilometre course can be used in a variety of configurations, providing drivers with a new challenge at every outing. A bit over 90 minutes east of Melbourne, Bryant Park was the site of the 3rd round of the Victorian Hillclimb Championships. A 7-round series held right across the state, the event attracted a wide variety of cars and drivers, with everything from stock standard road cars through to wild time attack sedans and dedicated hillclimb specials. One of the fastest was David Mahon's Dallara-based Hayabusa-powered special.
Mahon dominates hill climbing in his native South Australia, and this veteran hill climb specialist made the long trip east to take on the best in Victoria.
Long way to come across. You from South Australia. What made you come across all this way to enter the Victorian Hillclimb Championship?
I've been doing it for the last couple of years, and yeah, it's just different tracks all the time over here. We've only got one track in South Australia that the proper race cars like livers can, the purpose-built hill climb cars can only run at the one track. So fairly limited over there. But there's a lot more variety here and it's a bit better competition. Yeah.
Now, you've been a multiple champion in South Australia. Tell us about the car that you're driving here this weekend.
This car was built by a bloke by the name of Malcolm Osler. He's an ex-Formula One engineer. Yeah, so yeah, he built a really good car. And he built another one after this, a turbocharged one, but unfortunately that one's gone to Canada. So yeah.
So what's the power unit in this car?
It's a 1300 Suzuki Hayabusa motor. Yeah.
Many modifications to it, or is it mostly stock?
It's built by Phil Tatum Racing. They do all the superbike motors and what have you. So it's got a fair bit of work done to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of the track here at Bryant Park?
Oh, it's great. It's because there's different configurations of the track. Sort of every time you come here, it's a different track, really. Yeah, it's quite challenging.
You've been doing this a long time, haven't you? How long have you been hill climbing?
Wow, 40, 50 years. Yeah, a long time.
So what's the attraction of hill climbs?
Well, it's a lot cheaper than circuit racing. I mean, I used to do circuit racing years ago. I used to race sports sedans and touring cars, and it just got too expensive. And because I've got a lot older, I'm not fit enough to do circuit racing anymore. But with the hill climbs, it's it's all over pretty quick, so you can sort of push yourself fairly well for for a short period of time.
And you're definitely in contention for the outright here today, and you've also won the South Australian Championship last year. You said you've been racing for a long time. If we can be rude about it, I mean, how old are you now?
I'll be 72 in July.
You're doing pretty well for 72.
Yeah.
So do you think, what's the limit? I mean, how long do you think you'll keep going?
Well, I'm not sure. Probably doing a lot better now than what I would have thought, when I was younger. But I was an interstate truckie all my life. So I don't know, perhaps that's helped because I added up the kilometres I've done here a while back, and I'm probably up around 9 million, 10 million kilometres that I've actually driven. So perhaps it all helps.
So the run across from South Australia to Haunted Hills is not necessarily a big ask for you.
No, not really. You can do it in one hit. Yeah, it's pretty easy, really.
What about the Australian Championship? Where is that being held this year, and will you be attending there?
That's going to be at Ringwood, up near Newcastle somewhere. Yeah, I haven't been there before. Yeah.
And will you enter for this one?
Probably. I'm not 100% sure yet. Queensland have got their state championship next month, I think it's the 27th or something. So I'm just thinking about going back up there to do that one again. Because that's a really good track as well, Mount Cotton.
So seeing that you've done so much hill climbing, I mean, for people who are watching at home at the moment who don't know much about it, especially those who are just beginning in motorsport, do you think it's a good spot for young people to come and learn and get some miles up in behind the wheel of a race car?
Oh yeah, it's great because it's fairly cheap when you compare it against circuit racing. You don't need a full competition license to do hill climbs. You don't need the same license you do with circuit racing. So it's a lot cheaper, and they've got all sorts of classes. You can run a road registered car, doesn't have to be hotted up or anything like that. and you can get out there and have some fun and get some experience.
And it's certainly a challenge looking at that track.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, good luck for the rest of the day. I know you're doing very well at the moment. Hopefully we'll see you in action a bit later, but for right now, David, thanks for joining us in pit lane.
Yeah, no worries, okay, thank you.
Of course, the bad thing about hill climbing is that to cover it, you've got to climb hills. You're watching In Pit Lane from Haunted Hills, Bryant Park here for the Victorian Hillclimb Championship. And while you take a break, I'm going to go get some oxygen and move on to our next interview. Don't go away. If I survive, we'll be right back. It's a long way down.
Welcome back to In Pit Lane, coming to you from Bryant Park and round 3 of the Victorian Hillclimb Championships. One of the great strengths of hill climbing is the wide variety of cars and drivers it attracts. Linda Harper is a passionate supporter of hill climbing and sees the sport as the ideal way to attract new and younger competitors, in particular more women to the sport. Linda shares her car with her husband, another advantage of hill climbing where people can compete against each other in the same car.
Linda, welcome to the Victorian Hillclimb Championship. Can you tell us how long you've been involved in hill climbing?
Oh, I've been in hill climbing now for 10 years. Yep. It's a fabulous sport. Great.
What's the attraction?
There's camaraderie and good competition across all forms or classes that are up here. So I've had a go at improved production and now I'm in sports and ads.
So what do you think of the track here?
It's a purposely built track which is set up to make the car as uncomfortable as possible. So it's very, very trying, and when you think you have it, you don't. But it's great.
So tell us about the car you're driving here this weekend.
I'm racing a Toyota Corolla this weekend, which is my usual baby. She's up to 1300 front wheel drive. Toyota Corolla 1600. Up to 1300. Oh, up to 1600. Sorry. I'm getting advice here.
So what do you think in terms of getting young people involved in the sport? How do you think, there's a lot of young people, I mean, they go into circuit racing,
yes,
and they've got cars sitting around because they, for one reason or another, they can't afford to, and yet there's these sort of events happening regularly. Would it be a good thing for some of them to get them out of the garages and come and try, give this a try?
Absolutely. I'm a big promoter and would love to see younger people having a go. They can come in their road car. They don't have to have something like this. They can run what they call unlogbooked cars, and they just rock up and belong to a club and away you go. It's a fabulous way to start. Outside of that, there's, besides hill climbing, there's the club events like club sprints and those types of events that they could also have a go at. Yeah.
So what about where they're trying to encourage more and more young women to be involved in the sport? I mean, what do you think about that? How can we get young women involved in the sport?
I'm very passionate about that subject. I'd love to see a lot more young women. There's a couple more girls here today who are racing. Usually we have a few more. So I've raced with girls at Bathurst and encouraged younger girls to have another go where they go, oh, I don't think I'm good enough or I'm not fast enough. I think it's all about getting out there and having a go, and with that will come their skills.
Is that a problem? We've had a lot of young girls on the program over the years from karting, and they've been a lot of them very, very talented drivers. And you think that we'll keep an eye on them because they're going to be the next big thing. They are genuinely, and suddenly they just disappear and they get to about 16, 17 and they've suddenly got no interest anymore. What's stopping them? What's the barrier?
I think there's a lot of, it's a male-orientated sport, should I say, whereas I go, well, no, you just get in there and you're one of the guys, if even though you're a girl, and you give it a good go. And you will find you'll build that respect over time. I think guys sort of look on the women as, they're just out there for a bit of fun, but they're really not involved. Where, as you say, there is a lot of girls that come through kart, highly talented, who could go on and do some fabulous stuff. I think getting sponsorship as well is difficult for a girl.
Why is that? It seems to be something that I've heard a lot from a lot of women racers.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I would think that just the difference and just also the other products that you might be able to promote would be an ideal situation.
There is. There's a lot of women who just sort of, look for the feminine side of things and feel that this is, not for them, or they can't promote the product in a way that they would want, but I really don't understand why there isn't further sponsorship for women racing, because they certainly have the talents, and I think they're far more strategic, they're far better with a car, and if they're at it all the time, their skill set really does grow, sometimes faster than the guys. So it's very, very sad to see them not being taken up.
So what club are you with, and where should people join? If there's any young women out there watching the show at the moment, where do they go?
You can join any car club to do this sport. I belong to Geelong Motorsports Club. They're a fantastic group, but over the years, I've been involved with Toyota, Mazda, and there's a whole group that I've been involved in, but currently with Geelong Motorsports Club. They're fabulous. But any car club, they usually will run either a Motorcana or Quinn Sprints or something to get that feel for a sedan or a car, even just their road car, and move them further along. Just need that encouragement, that extra step, and be brave. Just do it. Don't be put off by what the guys say. Just do it.
And being a member of the Geelong Car Club, but you may have a new circuit down there fairly soon.
Yes, we may.
What do you think of that? Are you,
that would be brilliant.
Are you confident of that? That's
I am. I'm very confident that it'll happen, and they've been working hard to try and get that up and going. So we could certainly do with more circuits. There's not enough, or not enough available for lower levels of motorsport.
Is that the worry with this? We're talking about it being an FIA Grade 1 circuit and all that. I mean, and that's fabulous.
It is.
But I mean, what's the point if it's going to replace things like Sandown or Phillip Island?
Well,
what's the point if you've got this fabulous venue and it's going to be too expensive for people like yourself to run at?
I think it will be interesting for the location, although Phillip Island is in a similar situation. Like, they still manage to run multi-level different types of motorsport, so not just all the top cars, but having more tracks I think is vitally important, because the likes of Sandown, which is on the way out, you need to have replacements, and if you don't, then it's bad for everybody. So yeah, fingers crossed that Geelong definitely gets up.
Well, good luck with that, and hopefully we'll see you on track at Avalon in a few years' time. Hopefully I'll see me on track at Avalon in a few years' time. But in the meantime, Linda, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, the long drive paid off for David Mahon, who took out the fastest time of the day with a 66.90 run to beat Wim Jansen by just over 2 seconds. Brian Minahan was third. The next round of the Victorian Hillclimb Championship will be at Mount Laura at Camperdown on the weekend of May 20th and 21.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's edition of In Pit Lane from Bryant Park and the Victorian Hillclimb Championship. Hillclimbing is a great sport. I've said many, many times, hillclimbing and Motorcana, two of the great wasted opportunities of Australian motorsport, grassroots motorsport. Very, very television friendly, and we would love to cover more of it. If you're running a Motorcana or you've got a hillclimb round coming up, and we can get to it, because I suppose the weak point of it all is they do tend to be a long, long, long way away from Melbourne. But nonetheless, it's worth it once you get here. We'll be back in the studio next week on In Pit Lane. We're coming to the end of our first season, but the good news is Channel 31 have re-signed In Pit Lane for a winter season. So we're going to be going out right throughout the winter season, right between the end of May right through until the 1st of September. So what we're going to fill it with, I've got no idea. If you've got any idea, let us know, because we're not in the studio. So look, if you've got a workshop, if you've got a project that we can do a feature on, if you want to just invite us to dinner for a bit of a chat and a barbecue, we don't mind. We're pretty desperate, so make sure you contact us at the show at inpitlane.com. That's the show at inpitlane.com. But anyway, until we see you back in the RMIT studios in Grand Prix City, Melbourne next week, from everybody at In Pit Lane and here at the Victorian Hillclimb Championships, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.